Right, well, morning everybody. Here for the Office 2010 webinar. I focused it on the 2010 today, mainly because most people tend to have that version, but you will find that if you're on 2007 or even 2013, the very latest version, a lot of what I show you today will be the same in those. So this is me. I'm Rachel. I work for a company called Frog, and I've been a trainer for 30 years, not quite 30 years, 20 years, seems a long time. And I was originally trained at Microsoft, and more recently I've become a certified online learning facilitator. And that mouthful really means I've been on courses and been assessed to deliver these kind of sessions, so webinars, but primarily I deliver training sessions, so it's a bit more interactive through the web. But today we're on a webinar. There will be some interaction because of the questions that we're going to have at the session at the end. And just to show you, some of you hopefully will be familiar with the control panel on the right of your screen, but if you're not familiar, there's a little red arrow. If you press that, it will actually hide the panel. If you press it again, it will bring the panel back. And on the panel, you should find a question area. So throughout the session, by all means, start putting in questions. And in the other half of the session, I'll start to work through those questions and hopefully give you some answers. If I can't give you the answers, then you're quite welcome to email me, and I'll give you my email address so you can contact me directly. So hopefully you found that little panel there. And this is what we're going to go through in this session. Got approximately 30 minutes, so it's not that long a session to cover all these bits and pieces. Hopefully you'll find some interesting tips and features. So we're going to have a look at just general Office tips first of all, followed by Word, Excel, PowerPoint. And then I've had a few questions from you guys already about what is Office 365 and understanding the difference between normal Office and so on. So I'm just going to give you a quick demo of that. And then some support options, and then obviously have a look at some questions as well and give you some answers. So let me go into Word first of all. I'm just showing you the Office features now using Word, but these Office features that I show you will also be applicable in Excel and PowerPoint and even Outlook. So first of all, there is a little toolbar at the top of your screen, which you've probably been using for saving and undo and redo, but you can add other buttons to this toolbar as well. So I just click on the drop-down arrow at the end, and I can add the most common buttons. And if you've been on 2003, a very old version of Office, you may have wondered where all your normal buttons were. Well, this is how you find them. So you can add these to your buttons, to your toolbar in Excel, Outlook and PowerPoint as well. You can also add further buttons, so I use tables and pictures quite a lot. So if I go to Insert, I can right click on any button and I can add to my toolbar as well. So if I click on Add to Quick Access Toolbar, you can see I've added my table up there, so that no matter which tab I am clicked on, I can still get access into this button. So I can just go and choose, say, the picture and add to my toolbar, and you can see I've popped them up. So nice and easy to use. You've then got your main ribbon with all your options on. The Home tab is the one that you get all your main basics from. And also you have these tiny little arrows in the corners that will bring up the dialog boxes for even more options. So if you can't find what you're looking for, just go and click on these little arrows. They're known as dialog launchers, and it just gives you all the extra options. If for some reason you lose your ribbon, and that's been known, if I double click on where it says Home, it hides the ribbon. Maybe some of you have done that already by accident. The reason why you would do that is obviously to show more of your screen, particularly useful if you're working on tablets, small screen laptops. If you want to get your ribbon back again, I can just double click on the tab and it puts it straight back on screen again. But that can be useful if you've got a very small screen, and I do use that often. So that's your ribbon. If I go over to the File tab and I go into Recent, I obviously get a list of my most recent documents, and in 2010 I also get my most recent folders, so I can quickly get into these areas, which is very handy. But I can also pin them on the list so I can keep them there for future. So if I click on any document on my list, it transfers them to the top of the screen, and that will stay, those will stay there forevermore. Even if I haven't used them for a month, they will be there so I can quickly get back into them. So I can do that also for my folders. So if I click on ones near the bottom of the list, you can see it transfers them to the top. So I can get quick access into those. So that's useful. If I go down to Save and Send, a lot of us use PDFs. You might save your PDFs, which you can still do through Save As or even print to a PDF. But also within this Save and Send option, I can create PDFs from here. But I can also send as PDF. Now this is a great button because this saves me having to save it first, then go into my Outlook and email it. This does the whole thing in one go. So if I click on Send as PDF, for the document that I've got on screen, it will just bring up my message box with my PDF already attached. So it cuts out the middle step, so that will speed you up no end. And that was just through the File tab, Save and Send as PDF. Finally, for the other general Office feature I'm going to show you today is Screenshot, and this is one of my favorites. Now as a trainer, I use screen dumps in a lot of my documents for training manuals and so on, and I imagine that you've put screen dumps into your documents as well. You may have used the print screen button on your keyboard. You may have used other programs like the snipping tool, for example. There's lots of tools out there. But within Office and in 2010, you have something called Insert Screenshot. So if I go up to Insert, I have a button for Screenshot. And if I click on that, that will list me all the programs that I've got currently open. It will also work with any other programs, so Internet, PDF, and so on. And for wherever I place my cursor, so if I place my cursor further down the document, and I want one of these screenshots to go in, I just click on, here's an Excel one that I've got open, so if I click on this one, it will just dump it straight into my document. Look how quick that is. As long as it's open, I can just dump it straight in. And what it does, it just puts it in as a picture. I can then resize it however I want. And if you look at the top of the screen, I've got picture tools, and whenever I insert pictures, I will get all these options. And I'm going to show you picture tools later on, but there's lots of things I can play around with on here. But if you thought that was good, what happens if I wanted to just take part of the screen, so some buttons? I don't want the whole screen in there. So if I just delete that, and if I go back to Insert Screenshot, I got something called screen clipping. Now I actually want to use my Excel program for the screen clipping, and what I need to make sure of is that the Excel is actually at the first point of the list. So what I need to do is just go into Excel first, then go back to Word, and then if I go into Screenshot, you'll see it's the first one on the list. And now if I use screen clipping, it will switch me into Excel, it will go grey, and then I can just drag over any area that I want, and it will just dump that straight in my document. Look how quick that is. Much quicker than using snipping tools and so on. So that's really handy. That saved me loads of time with all my training manuals. So that's your screenshot in all your programs. So there's a few of the general features. So the toolbars, the ribbons, pins, save and send as PDF, and screenshots. What I want to show you now is just a few bits and pieces with Word. The first thing I want to show you in Word is really an issue which a lot of people haven't liked in these versions of the newer versions of Word. So I'm just going to go into a new document, and I'm going to just start typing, and as soon as I press enter, I actually get a gap. Some of you might have experienced this already and probably pulled your hair out trying to get rid of this gap. And if I highlight the information, a temporary fix for this is if I go up to styles, I've got something called normal, and no spacing. So if I just hover on no spacing, you can see it closes it up. Or if I go back to normal, it puts it back in. So I can actually click on no spacing and that sorts it out. However, if I then create future documents, it will still revert back to the spacing issue. So what I want to do is set it as a default, that there is no space. So what I'll do is just go back to the normal setting. And then if I go to the paragraph little arrow for my extra options, I can see that I've got something called paragraph spacing and line spacing. So if I reduce the paragraph spacing to 0 and the line spacing to single, and I must choose set as default. If I just choose OK, it will affect just this document. By choosing set as default, it will affect all future documents, as long as I choose this option as well. So all documents based on the normal template. And if I choose OK, you'll see it closes up my information there. And then if I create a new document and start typing, you'll see it's closed up there, so it's fixed my problem. So that's what you'll need to do. You only need to do it once, and then it will fix it for Word forevermore. So all I did was I went into paragraph, set this box to 0, and line spacing to single, and set as default. So if I go back to my other document, into my story of chocolate, just to get you a bit hungry, being 11s, and I want to have a title page for my document. I've got something called cover pages. If I go to Insert and Cover Page, I have all these title pages that I can choose from. You can even create your own as well, but if I click on something from my list, and it will just automatically put in a title page. I can update information on it, change it. I can go and switch over to different cover pages. And if I don't want it at all, I can just go to the bottom and choose remove. Saves you a lot of faffing around, deleting stuff and so on. So that's a nice feature. Tables are really good in Word. If I go up to Insert, Table, I just hover over as many boxes as I want. And as soon as I insert a table, I get table tools at the top. And this is where a lot of people have missed out on all the options and wondered how to work with tables. If I click away from the table tools disappear at the top. You must be in your table to make changes. So you can see it's popped back up. So once I'm in my table, I can customize it with these designs, very quick styles. I have got my normal borders and shading buttons over here if you're used to using that way. And if I go over to the Layout tab for Table Tools, that's when I can get my inserting columns to the left, to the right, inserting rows, deleting them, merging, splitting. Some of you might be familiar with just right-clicking, that's all there. Okay, but what I do like about using these table tools is if I just select my table, I can also adjust sizes very quickly. I can just increase these numbers and they're all equal. Or my columns, just changing that, and they're all equal. And then I've even got auto fit. And I can auto fit to window, which will just expand it to the margin edges very quickly. So there's some nice little features on there. And then if I want to work with pictures, I've had a few questions already from you guys about pictures and why they don't move where you want them to go, so this will help you. So I want to insert a picture, and I've got a nice piece of chocolate cake here. So I've inserted it, scale it from the corners so you always keep the correct dimensions. Okay, and you'll see that as I move it, it splits the text, which doesn't always look very nice. And if I want it to go out in the margin, I can't do that. However, I need to change something called the wrap text. And if you look at the top, I've got picture tools that pop up as soon as I insert my picture. And over on the right, I have wrap text. And if I choose tight, you can see that the text is just wrapped around it. And now I can position my picture wherever I want. And you can do that for many objects in Word. You just need to change the wrap text and you can move it wherever you want. And there's all sorts of options in there, behind, in front, so it's just something to play with. I tend to always use tight. That seems to work best for me. And there's all sorts of little styles and options up here just to make it look a bit better, and I'll show you more of those when we look at PowerPoint. Okay, but text wrapping, very useful. So there's your word features. I'm going to close that, and we're going to have a look at Excel now. Now, whenever I do training in Excel, people often are amazed at how quick you can do a lot of formatting. And a lot of people tend to go into format cells by right-clicking format cells all the time. But actually, there's lots of things on the ribbon. So if I highlight my headings at the top here, and if I want to change the orientation, I can use this A/B button, and I can just angle the text, drop it down, use all these different settings here, and this is very useful for long text. You don't want to expand the column because you might push it onto extra pages, so you can just drop your text down. So you've got that button there. You've also got wrap text, and again, a lot of people go into format cells to find this. If you're not sure what wrap text is, if I just type in my name, you can see it's overrun into the next column. I want to wrap it within that column F, and it just drops it down. So I can turn that on and off very easily. And I can format my numbers very quickly. So I can highlight my numbers, and I use this number area here, and I change from general to, say, currency. All sorts of options from this list. I can even get more options at the bottom. And if I don't want any formatting, I just go back up to general, and it takes it off. So you've got lots of buttons here to play with. If I just put currency back on though, and I decide I want to delete those numbers, so I just press delete on the keyboard, and then the next time I type in a number, it automatically pops back up as currency, and I can see that up here in the box. Now that could be fine, but sometimes a lot of people just want it to be just clean with no formatting on there. So of course I could change it to general, but that's a two-step process, deleting everything, then changing it back to general. So what I'm going to do is just show you a clear all button over on the right-hand side of my screen. If I highlight my information again, I've got clear on the right and clear all. And that empties the whole lot of information out and also sets back the number formatting to general. And it will also take off colors, borders, and so on. So it's actually a very, very useful button in Excel to keep things absolutely clean when you're removing bits and pieces. So if I bring my data back in, I've also got conditional formatting. And what that is it can visually display high-low numbers. Salespeople love this. Little graphical elements or color scales, varying ranges, or even icon sets to show you what are high or low numbers. But you can also create your own rules. I can display anything greater than a certain amount. So if I go into greater than, and if I type in 500, you can see that there's a lot that's over 500. So let's change that to be 1,000. And you can see it colors it red, or I can change my color. And it's quickly identified that information. And if I change something to be over 1,000, you can see it automatically updates. And if I change it back again, it automatically changes. And that's the whole point of conditional formatting. It saves you having to manually format it with colors and things like that. So very useful. And if I clear that, just by going to conditional formatting and clear rules. So that could be useful for you. How about charts then? I've got a little quick tip for charts. I highlight my data and I press F11 at the top of my keyboard, F11. Look at that, quick chart. All my tools are at the top. Chart tools, I can change my chart type very easily and quickly. I can use these things called chart layouts to add data labels, values for each bar, or even a data table, so a little mini spreadsheet at the bottom. And I can also change styles very quickly here. And if I go up to layout at the top, I can then start to add even more bits and pieces to my chart. So if I didn't want the table anymore, I can go into data table, none. If I want data labels, the numbers to represent my columns, I can choose where I want them displayed. So in the center, or inside the end, or even none. Legend, that's the key, and it pops it on. So you can just work your way through these buttons and add your information. And under Format, you can format your bars and any part of your chart to be different colors. So I just select the data that I want and it selects the same color all the way through. And I go up to Shape Fill and I change the color. So choose another one, Shape Fill, change the color. And I can even put a background image on. If I just click onto the background area and I can fill it with a picture. And I've seen this done quite well with sort of products. What shall I have? Nice cat in the background. Not quite what you would put on your own business information, but you can see you can add pictures to it. And if I don't want it, I can go for no fill. So I created that chart just by simply pressing F11, and it just put it into its own sheet at the bottom here. So I can go back to my data and just flick between the two. And finally, nice simple feature. If I want to scroll down my data, I may lose my headings. So at the top I've got these headings. If I scroll down, I can't see those headings anymore. And if I scroll to the right, I can't see the dates anymore. So I can use something called freeze panes. Now some of you may have come across freeze panes before, but it's knowing where to position yourself. You need to be clicked underneath your headings and to the right of any headings. So I've positioned myself in B2 and I go to View, Freeze Panes, and I get these black lines across the screen. And now if I scroll down, I can see exactly which column I'm working in and exactly which date I'm looking at. So it was under View and Freeze Panes. And just to unfreeze to take it off. So there you go, some quick formatting in Excel, conditional formatting, quick tip for creating charts, F11, and freeze panes from the View tab. And let's have a look at PowerPoint now. So if I close my Excel and open up my PowerPoint file, think about holidays, drawing into winter. So, got a very basic presentation here. First thing I want to show you is the new slide button. Had a lot of questions about where's the new slide button, the new version. It's on the Home tab. As I mentioned, all of the basics are on the Home tab. So I've got my new slide button here, and you should be using these layouts to create all your slides. So if you want a title slide, use that one. If you want a title at the top and then a chart or bullet points underneath, you tend to use this one. So I've set up my presentation using those, but then I might want to have a logo on every slide. I might want to have my text to be different fonts and different colors throughout the whole presentation. So I use something called a master to set up the design of my presentation. And basically the master is like the behind layer of my presentation. So to find that, I go to View and I go to Slide Master. And it just switches into a different view, and I get all these layouts down the side here. This is what was on the new slide button, all these layouts. And I need to be on the very top one. That's important. I need to be on the very top one to update every slide to have a logo and every slide to have particular fonts. So if I want all my titles to be red, I select my title area and I just go back to Home and choose my red information, red font. So you can see that it's updated all the titles down the list here. And if I select my bullet area and again change that to red, you can see that that's updated further down as well. And I want a picture to go in to represent a logo. So if I click in, I'll choose my cat again, and I'll pop the cat in, make it smaller, pop it up in the right hand corner. So this would represent like a logo, and you can see that has now repeated on all the slides too. But I've got a little problem here. It's just clashing with my title area. So I just click into here and I resize my box to be away from the cat. And you can see it doesn't clash now anymore. And once I finish setting up my master, I can then close my master, and you can see that it's updated my presentation. Now that is really quick, particularly if you've got a 100-page presentation. Also, if you've got a template that you've always used from a particular company, you can go in and tweak that master at any time. If you need to move the logo slightly or change something slightly, you can go into the master and update things at any time. So that was found under View and Slide Master. Now, working with pictures. We had a quick look in Word where we saw the wrap text option to be able to move pictures easily, but just to show you a few other bits with pictures. I'll pop my beach in here. We'd all like to be on a beach somewhere, I think, today. And I get my picture tools again at the top. And if I click away, you'll see the picture tools disappear. So I've got to be clicked on my picture to see that. Now in PowerPoint, I don't have this problem of moving it around. I can move it anywhere. But in Word, you saw we had to change the wrap text. But in PowerPoint, we can start to make the picture look a bit better with these styles. Very quick. I've got sort of soft edges, reflections, shadow effect. I've got even more. If I click on the drop down, I can turn them into sort of postcard looking styles. So there's lots of things in there to play with. I've got even more picture effects in this button, even more reflections and glows, more soft edges. And you might have seen or used Photoshop or PaintShop Pro. So a lot of those basics are now incorporated into the Office system. So it's not just PowerPoint, Word has this as well, Excel has it. And then on the left-hand side, I've got corrections, so I can sharpen them, brighten them. I've got color options, so I can go to black and white, or even these themed colors. And I've even got artistic effects in 2010. I've got pencil drawings, or even neon-looking effects. But what is really good is this remove background. Now what I'm going to do is just insert another picture, and got this chap jumping in midair, and I want to be able to cut out this chap, get rid of the background and plonk him on the beach. So I click on remove background. A lot of it goes pink, and all I need to do is just drag up slightly the bottom edge so that the remaining sea goes pink, and then all I do is click away, and look at that. Background has disappeared. I can put him on the beach. I can even get him cartwheeling. And how quick was that to get rid of any background information you don't want? So that was remove background in PowerPoint. You have it in Word as well. So some nice bits and pieces with pictures. And the last one to show you in PowerPoint is SmartArt. So if I go to Insert SmartArt, these are diagrams. Saves you drawing arrows and boxes. Lots of diagrams in here, just got a list of them. And if I go to Cycle, and I'll just pick out this first one, common cycle diagrams to use, and all I need to do is click into the box, update the text, and away I go. And I can move this, resize it just like a normal object. And up the top, I've now got SmartArt tools where I can change to different diagrams quickly. I can change colors quickly. Even styles to make it a bit more 3D looking. There's lots of options in here. And if I want to go up to Format to change the colors myself, I can click on any of these objects within my diagram, and I've got shape fill to then change to different colors in this list. I can even put in pictures. So I can get my cat back again. Bit squashed, but yeah, you can do it. I can even change the shape of the object as well. So if I go over to change shape at the top, and I want a nice heart shape, You can see I've changed it up there. So there's lots of things you can do with SmartArt, and I found that under Insert. And I can also convert bullet points into SmartArt, because sometimes presentations can get a bit boring, too many bullet points, so diagrams just make it a bit more interesting. So I select my bullets, go back to Home, and I have a button that says Convert to SmartArt. And if I click that, immediately I get my diagrams, and I can hover on various ones here, even more options in more. And if I click on the, looks like an iPad, sort of iPod, and if I click on those, these little icons allow me to insert pictures. So I can just click them, add my pictures in. Nice chocolate one there. And again, I've got my SmartArt tools at the top where I can change colours, make it a bit more 3D looking. So you can convert your bullet points very quickly and make it a bit more interesting. So, PowerPoint, formatting with masters, updating the whole presentation with logos, working with pictures where you've got remove background, and you've got the SmartArt there as well. So let's have finally a look at Office 365, and then it will be over to questions. So if I go onto my web area here, and I've got a little sign in, and I've got a training account to use, so I can just sign into here. And what Office 365 is, it's just an online version of using Outlook. So you get email, calendar. You can also create documents, Word, Excel, PowerPoint documents, and store them on the cloud. So you can actually use them on devices and wherever you are in the world. All you need is an internet connection. So you can do this on your iPad, you can do this on tablets, you can even do it on your phones, as long as you've got that internet connection. So if I just sign in, hopefully I've keyed in the right password. There we go. And there are different subscriptions, because I've had some comments coming in. You can get different levels of using Office 365. There are home versions, which are very basic versions, and there are business versions, which allow you to have the full desktop versions as well. So you get the proper Word and Excel like I've been showing you, and then you can use Office 365 as well on your devices. So this is your Outlook area, very, very basic looking. But if I want to create new emails, got a button here. If I want to flag or categorize, you might be familiar with those in your normal Outlook, I can just right click on a message and you can see I can get some of these options. It doesn't give you all the options that you get normally in Outlook. It's just a very sort of scaled down version of it. And if I go to calendar, so you can work with your calendar. Again, I can create new events here. I can even share and print my calendar on the right and change views. Again, if I right click on something, I've got options to color code them, forward them on to people, and so on. And I have contacts, so people in other words. Something called Newsfeed. That's for internal, if you're working in a company and everybody is on this newsfeed, it's sort of like Twitter, you can follow people on particular topics and so on. But OneDrive, this is the interesting area. It used to be known as SkyDrive, but then there was a big legal battle with Sky, and Microsoft had to change it to OneDrive. And this is where you can create documents, share them with other people, and work on it. On an iPad, on a tablet, and so on. And very easily you can just create documents here. So if I just click on New, I can create a Word document. So if I click that, and you will get a scaled down version of Word using the internet. So I can type something in here, and you don't really need to keep saving stuff because it does automatically save it, but I'll just point something out in a second. You'll see, where's the save button? There is no save button. Okay, so it's a little bit of a strange concept. All right, all I do to get back to my main screen is if I click on this, this is me, this is my name. So if I click on that, you'll actually see that that was the document I've just created. This star indicates that it's new. And it doesn't give it a very good file name, which is a bit annoying. I would have to rename that. But if I go and click on these little dots here, it gives me more options. So I can go and edit the document again. I can share it. It gives me a preview of what it is. So it can be very, very useful to just quickly do documents in here, but it's a very scaled down version of it. And if I want to share it with someone, I've got a quick link here. So very, very, very nice. But a lot of people have had queries with it. It's not the full-blown version of Outlook, Word or Excel. So if you can't do something, it's because it's not there. You need the full version of Word or Outlook. So there you go, a little bit of an introduction to Office 365. So if I just log out of there, and we're going to have a look at some support issues, and then I'm going to take a look at our question area and try and deal with some of the questions. So first of all, for support, use the help that's in your programs. A lot of people have been put off this in the past, but actually it's quite useful. So if I just go into PowerPoint, and on the right hand side of the screen, you'll find this in all your programs, you have a question mark, and a lot of people have asked about shortcut keys. And if I click on this question mark, all sorts of topics come up relating to PowerPoint, but if I type in shortcut keys, it will come up with a list of options. Don't go necessarily for the training ones, those are like demonstrations, but if you go for articles, if I click on this, this will come up with a list of shortcut keys that you can expand and collapse. That's quite a nice way of finding stuff. You can do that in Excel, Word and so on. Whole list of shortcut keys, and you can print them out from there as well. So that's one area to look at. Google, YouTube, obviously they're really good. You know, I use those for demonstrations. Answers.microsoft.com, which is also known as the Microsoft Community. That's a really useful area that I tend to go to quite a lot. If you have any issues with Microsoft products, you can go and actually put a question on there and other people will respond to it. So that's a good one. And of course, you can contact me for quick things as well if you're stuck and just want an idea of where to find something. So you're quite welcome to jot down my email address, and I'll put that on at the end as well. So a couple of questions that I've had already before I go to the list today is Excel crashing. Now, I haven't experienced this, but I have come across other people experience this. You do need quite a good machine to run these programs, particularly for 2013. So you need quite a powerful machine, but there's also a lot of other factors. It could be that you need to put on all your updates for Microsoft Office and Windows. I have got a link, here we go, which is from Microsoft. With various suggestions here, so if anyone's interested I can send this over to you, or you can search for it, but there's so many bits and pieces that could cause it. But as I said, I haven't actually experienced this problem at all with any of my machines, training machines and so on. So it could be because updates aren't on there. Another question was Word sections, headers and footers. So how to have different headers and footers in a document. So if I just show you that quickly, I'll open up my story of chocolate again. And what I'm going to do is just put on my show hide button here. And hopefully you use that because it shows you all sorts of bits and pieces that you press, particularly when working with things called sections. So I've just positioned myself at the bottom of this page because I don't want any headers and footers on the first page, but I want headers and footers thereafter on the second page. So if I click at the bottom of the first page, go to page layout, breaks, next page. And that puts in a row of dots representing a section break. And what I can then do is double click into my header or footer, and that section break has now created two sections. I've got section 1 and section 2. Now even before I start typing, I have to remove this little option here where it says same as previous. So I've got a header and footer toolbar. I just click on this button, link to previous, and it unlinks section 1 from section 2. And now if I start typing, you can see nothing goes on that first page. And I can do the same for the footer. If I go down to my footer, I've got to remove the same as previous. So I click that button, it disappears, and now I can type without it affecting the first page. So if I do that again, if I want to have something different on the last page, I want to remove my headers and footers, let's say for the last page, I click at the bottom of the previous page, insert another section break, next page, and then go into the header and footer of the last page, and you can see I've got section 3 and section 2, and I need to remove same as previous. And then I can do whatever I want. And you can see it doesn't affect the previous section. So I need to remove the link for both header and footer. And there you go. So I've been able to break up my document with different headers. So that's that question answered, hopefully. A mail merge was a question. How to perform a mail merge. So that's actually the same in 2007, 2010 and 2013. It's all the same way. So a mail merge is if you want to merge list of names and addresses with a letter. So I've just got a new document and I go to Mailings, Start Mail Merge as a letter, and nothing happens. So all I need to do is just go along to the next button. I select recipients and I'm using an Excel list. So I use existing list and I go and find my file that I want to use. And it just comes up with a list of the sheets that I've got in my Excel file. So I'll just choose the first one. And again, nothing really happens, but I just move along to Edit Recipient List. And I click that, and I can see that these are all the people that I want to merge with, so that's fine. And then I just go along to where it says Insert Merge field, and these are all the headings from my Excel file, so I can just click on it, and then just start to add all the data that I want on my letter. And the address fields, and so on. And I can just build it all up. And once I've finished, I can preview my results. So hopefully you can see the actual data is there if I zoom in a bit more. So the codes and then the data, so just to check. And then to finish it, I edit the documents for all the records, and it will create all my letters in one document. And that's how you can perform a mail merge. And that was just with letters. So it was under under mailings and then start mail merge. And as I said, that's the same for 2007, 10 and 13. So those are the questions, some of the questions that I've had already. So let's see what questions we have on my list. So let's have a look. I'm just going to bring my panel over. Make it a little bit bigger. So, been busy. People been firing away. Oh, don't have an F11 on a Mac. What key do I press? Oh, now I do train on the Mac, and funnily enough, that's the one shortcut key. I don't know, but what I'll do is I'll get back to you, Sarah. If you want to email me, I'll check, because you can actually have external keyboards which will have F keys on it, but I'll check to see what the shortcut is for you. Oh, just found it. Ignore it, just found it. Oh, perhaps you can put it in and see, let me know what it is. Okay, can you demonstrate some of the features of tables in Excel, e.g. automatic totals and subtotals? So let me have a look at that then. So let's see whether my data is appropriate for that. Subtotals are very handy actually. If you've got a load of totals that you want adding up and separating it based on, say, company name. Let me have a look. Let's bring up Excel tips. Okay, this might be quite good. It's quite a lot of data to look at, but I've got products with the same sort of data in there, footballs, netballs, squash balls, and so on. So what I'm going to do is sort it first of all, and to sort it, I'm just going to add my little sorting buttons to my toolbar. And I'm going to sort it by product. So I can just click into my product area and then sort. So you can see all my footballs are together and all my netballs are together and so on. And what I want to do is actually add up all my football totals and then all my netball totals and so on. And that would create something called subtotals. So if I go over to data and I have something called subtotal, and at each change in my product, I want to sum. I don't want to count, I want to sum. And I want to sum the sales. And if I choose OK, you should then see that it summed up the football's total automatically for me. It summed up the netball's total, summed up the squash ball's total. So I don't have to sit there doing auto sum at various points. And then on the left hand side I have these outlining buttons where I can narrow down and summarize my data. So if I click on 1, it just shows me the grand total of sales, and then 2, it just summarizes it down based on those particular totals, and then 3 will bring back all the data again. So that's subtotals. So I hope, Mike, you've managed to find that useful. So next one, they're getting a little bit jumbled up here, I think. Am I familiar with the Office for Mac version? Some of it I am. It appears to me there are a few limitations compared. Yes, there are. There are a few differences. Let me just have a look at. Yes, there are a few differences. On a basic level, it should be quite similar. Shortcut keys, you tend to use the command key instead of the control key, but it is a little bit more limited for the Mac. Let's see the next one. Sheila, I've just got one from Sheila, which can't read the whole message, unfortunately, for some reason. Something's disappeared completely that I used to use in Office 2, disappeared completely from the suite, and I can't seem to find it. For some reason, Sheila, I can't see the whole of your message, so you might want to contact me separately via email. I'll give you my email address. What are the minimum requirements for Office to run properly? Oh, I'm not sure, Luca, actually, but it's certainly quite, for Office 2013, it's quite high. If you go onto the Microsoft website, that will give you the information. Again, I can find that out for you if you like. So next one, can you save a document created on Office 365 in your own computer? Yes, you can. And yes, you can. In Office 2013, it's actually much easier to work with Office 365, and it links you up all the time. In Office 365, you can set things to be available offline in there. If I go back in, let's have a quick look. I've got a lovely password which I can never remember for the training account. Oh, got it wrong. That should take us in. Yeah. Okay, if I go over to my OneDrive, so click over there. I've got a sync button which creates a synchronized copy on my computer. So that means you are able to work offline as well. And actually I actually have another machine with Office 2013 on it, and if I just show you that quickly, I'm just going to change presenter to my other machine, and you'll see how Office 2013 can really work well. So if I just change my presenter, okay, I'm just, hopefully you can see another machine now. This is Word 2013, so very similar to 2010. But if I go into File and go to Open, I can actually go straight on to my OneDrive account. So I've got a couple of OneDrive accounts. So I can go straight in and open these up, and I can also do a Save As straight into my OneDrive very, very easily. So it's quite useful to upgrade to Office 2013. You can do it in 2010 as well, but it's not as seamless. So I hope that sort of answered your question. So if I just change the presenter back. Okay, back on my screen hopefully. I meant, how do you do subtotals in Excel tables as from insert tables? Oh, okay, Mike. Now, I have a feeling you can't. Let me just remind myself. So if I remove my subtotals, and if I turn it into a table, tables are very useful in that it formats your data very quickly, so you can see it's got formatting on it. It also put filters on very quickly, and it also gets your data prepared for pivot tables quite nicely as well. But it's quite a nice feature to use. So, subtotals. I have a feeling you can't have it. So, yeah, it's greyed out. No, it won't work with tables. I can double check that, Mike, but I have a feeling it doesn't work with tables. It's one or the other, I'm afraid. Okay, so I think that's all the questions. Some of the questions I haven't been able to answer, but by all means email me directly and I can speak to you about those. I hope you've enjoyed the session today, and I'll just bring my screen back up for you. So if you want to jot down my email address, you're quite welcome to. And I may hear from you soon. Any other questions before we close? We've got a few more minutes. Thanks, Anna. Great. Quite a lot to cover in this session, I think, but I hope you've picked up a few bits and pieces. Yes, you can use Microsoft on the iPads. You can get apps, Word app and Excel app. So if you go on the App Store, you can get it. They're really good. And on the iPhone as well. Just got another one from Liz. Charting in PowerPoint is pretty much the same as charting in Excel. By all means, create it in Excel, and I think most people do create charts in Excel and then copy and paste them over. But you can do it directly in PowerPoint as well. Let me just show you that. So if I come out of here, and I'll just change my layout. So I can use these little icons in the middle. If I click on my chart, you can see this is a similar box to what we had in Excel. I choose the kind of chart I want. And what it will do is just separate the screen, and I can then type in my data. So let's do. Can't think of another charity. My mind's blocked now. Let's think of who. And donations. You can start to see it builds up. And then I can just update my numbers and it builds up my chart very quickly. And if I close my Excel screen, get rid of that one as well, you can see my charts there and I get the same tools as I had in Excel. So I've got the styles, I've got the layouts, I can change the chart type, got the layout tab at the top to customize it further and so on. So now I think there's no real difference in using bringing Excel into PowerPoint or doing everything in PowerPoint. So I hope that's answered your question, Liz. It'd be interesting to know which version you're actually on. Are you on a very old version, say 2003? I would definitely update. 2007 was still pretty similar to 2010. So I hope that's answered that for you. Oh, why does it keep showing compatibility mode in a Word document? Good question. In fact, you may have seen that on my story of chocolate. It's not just Word, it does it in all of them. So if I open up my story of chocolate, you see compatibility mode at the top. That means this is either an old document or I've saved it as an old document. And what I mean by that, I've saved it into a Word 2003 version, so that if I sent this document to anybody and I didn't know which version they were using, they could be on an old version, they would still be able to open it up, work on it and do stuff on it. So it's compatible for all versions. But what it does mean is that some features can be disabled. So for example, I've got this button here on the Home tab for text effects, and it's greyed out. I can't use it. It's disabled, and it's because I'm in compatibility mode. And if I want to get out of compatibility mode, I can either save it and save it up into the most up-to-date version, or I can just convert. If I go to File, I get a button that says Convert. And if I click this, it will just warn me it's going to convert. It also reduces the file size of a document, so that's worth doing as well. And then you can see compatibility mode is removed, and I've now got this button to do fancy effects. So compatibility mode just means it's saved as an old version. So I hope that's answered your question, Charles. Andy, hello Andy. When I try to put a formula into Excel, it offers me a dialog box, but I've never worked out how to take advantage of it. Ooh, I'm not sure what you mean actually. Is it this? So is it you're clicking on this button here and it pops up with this? So just clicking on the FX button, it could be. You don't need to use that. If you want a formula, you can just type in equals and then click the cell times the other cell, or add, or whatever you want to do. Or if you want to do things like average, max, min, that's when you can start using this button. But to do simple ones, you can actually use your auto sum button, which is on the right hand side. If I just open up a file, so if I wanted to average the January sales, I can go up to my auto sum button on the right and choose average, and it highlights the information for me, and there you go, that's my average sales for January. And then I can copy that across and work out the average for Feb, average for March. And then I can do the maximum, the highest sales for that month. So if I do max, I can highlight my data and then copy it across to find out the max for each month. But if I want to do anything more than that, then I can go into functions, and there's so much stuff in here. If I change to the all category, this lists you all the mathematical functions Excel can perform. A lot of them are finance orientated, scientific orientated, and so on. So there's lots in there, lots of scary stuff in there actually at times. So Andy, if I haven't answered your question, give me a shout by email, and we can talk it through then. And another question. Sorry I came in a bit late. Do you run training programs for Microsoft on the Macs? We sort of do actually. We run training programs for mainly Windows-based courses, but we do get people coming in on our training sessions with a Mac. They tend to train on the PC, but we show them differences for those. So the answer is yes. It depends what it is. So again, if you contact me direct, I can talk to you about that. Office 7. Liz, do you mean Windows 7? Because there's something called Windows 7 or Windows 8 or Office 2007, Office 2010, Office 2013. That just needs to clarify, Liz. Okay, time up. So it sounds like it's a bit useful. Liz, Office 2007? And remind me what the question relates to, Liz. Just put something else in there for me. Charting. Okay, now I can't connect to a machine for charting, but if I remember rightly, it should be fairly similar to what I showed you. Probably not the separate screens. I think there's an edit data button where you can fill out a little sample sheet, but it works in pretty much the same way with the tabs at the top. If you still have a problem with it, Liz, we can link up later if you like, and I can guide you through it. Any more questions? Okay. Well, by all means, you can close your panel now and leave the session. Thank you, everybody. And good luck with using Office.